All right, here we go. Welcome back to Real Estate Bites, my friends. Coming at you on Fridays at the lunch hour, giving you something to chew on over the weekend, some real estate news or insight, or whatever. This week, I want to talk about home inspections. The title is "The Home Inspector Killed My Deal." This is a complaint that I have heard many times over the last 7.5+ years that I've been doing this. Many times by many different agents. I would say when I was new and just learning, just cutting my teeth in the business, I used this excuse once or twice. But as I've gotten wise to everything here, or wiser, I should say, there are. I maintain this with all my agents, right? You are the face of this deal. If things go sideways, the first place that you should look for culpability is yourself. Okay. There are a lot of different professionals who we work with that touch all the different parts of the deals, right? The inspectors one, of course, the title company, loan officers, attorneys, possibly, banks. There's a lot of different pieces, parts, but the one role that touches every aspect is the real estate agent. It's us. And so if something is going wrong, the first thing I'm going to do is try to think back to where it might have begun and what action could I have taken, what words could I have spoken to make a change so that it could be avoided. And while the current situation, it may be too late, at least I'm learning by doing this bit of reflection and introspection. And so I can incorporate into my practice in the future. Okay. So the adage, the inspector killed my deal, not so good. However, I do still hear it a lot, and there are obvious reasons for it. And I want to talk about home inspections, inspectors, their duties, their roles, agents, and our duties and roles during the inspection, and try to clear some of this stuff up a little bit. So, why are home inspections important? I mean, they're critical. Obviously, they're critical. They're designed to protect the buyer from buying a house that has problems that they cannot see from a 15, 20, 45-minute showing. There are things that the inspectors are going to do, places they're going to go that most agents, including me, are not going to do. I am not climbing on a roof during the showing. If the attic doesn't have a pull down that I can walk up and take a peek at with my flashlight, I'm not climbing in an attic. I'm not climbing in a crawl space. But the inspector is going to do all those things. I'm not taking the cover off of an electrical panel. The inspector is going to do all these things, okay? Let me say this real quick, though. I want to get this off my chest right off the bat. If you are a real estate agent whose modus operandi is to say, hey, Mr. Buyer, you know what? Let's go in with a nice, strong purchase price to get this under contract, and then we'll use the inspection to try to claw some of that money back. We'll find a bunch of things. We'll ask for a bunch of fixes, and, we'll ask for, an amount of fixes that they're most likely going to say, here, just take some money. If that's your MO, you suck. Okay. That's underhanded. That is dishonest. Listen, the purpose of a home inspection is to shield the buyer. It is not to bludgeon the seller. Okay. So if you're an agent that likes to use the home inspection to try to nickel and dime a seller, you suck. Okay. And I'm asking you to change your ways. All right. That said, we know inspections are important. So what is the inspector supposed to do? What is their job when they show up on site? It's pretty simple. They're to observe and report the defects that they find in the home. They're supposed to look at all of the general systems in the home and find and report whether or not they operate in satisfactory condition or if they are not. Okay. Pretty simple. Here's what they're not supposed to do. Okay. They're not supposed to make guesses about things like how old something is. If they cannot run a serial number and find exactly how old it is, they shouldn't make a guess and tell you with any sort of specificity how old the furnace is, or the roof is, or the concrete job, or the windows. They don't know, and to sit there and take a guess, it could be a bad thing. They could take a guess and be wildly wrong. All right. They're not supposed to render opinion on value of anything. Certainly not the home. They're not supposed to render an opinion on the value of the systems within a home. They're not supposed to tell you how much it would cost to repair because they don't know. They're not a contractor. Okay. They're a licensed home inspector. Their job is just to go in and find all of the defects in a home and report them, big and small, things that are superficial and really not important at all, to the big things that should be a major concern. Okay. Talking about those agents who like to use the inspection report to hammer a seller and try to squeeze some money out of them. Listen, unless it's a safety issue, unless the problem identified by the inspector is a safety issue, or it is a issue of functionality where, the AC doesn't work when it's advertised that it has central air conditioning, and you should reasonably be able to expect, especially at the market price, that system works. Okay, those are the kinds of things that should go in a removal of inspection contingency addendum. Those are the kinds of things that you would ask a seller to address. If it's something that is a safety issue or an issue of functionality in a system that should be reasonably expected to perform when you purchase the house, all those other items, they should be left alone. I mean, that's part of owning a home and maintaining a home. That's the things that you take on. Okay. Now, an inspection is not an FHA appraisal. It's not a VA appraisal. Those appraisers may call out other things that an inspector might not. Now, a knowledgeable inspector should be able to tell you what might get called out in an FHA or VA appraisal, but it's different. A handrail and a staircase of 4 steps could be easily overlooked by anybody because who cares? What's the deal? But an FHA appraiser is going to say, we're not going to finance that loan until there's a handrail there. They consider that a safety precaution. Okay, so that's a entirely separate thing. The inspector should definitely be knowledgeable. They should definitely have a strong idea of the functionality of all the systems in the home and what's supposed to be in there. They're trained all these things, right? They're not going to get their license unless they have this proper training. It's nice to have an inspector with a keen eye who's looking beyond the scope of criteria that they're trained to look for and who can see a little bit deeper into a home and its dynamics. You don't know that inspector has that keen eye until you've worked with them a handful of times and you've been able to see them look at a number of different homes and find items that aren't necessarily either in the criteria of what they're to report on or, something that's not easy to identify. Okay, back to what they shouldn't do. Here's what they should never, ever do. And that is recommend negotiation tactics to your buyer. Okay. Especially if they're talking numbers. If I have, and I have had inspectors tell my buyer client what they should ask off of the purchase price because of something, I immediately pulled that inspector aside and I said, they have no right and reason to do that. And if they ever do it again, if I hear them do it again, I will never, ever recommend them to another buyer ever. And here's why, guys. They don't know what the costs are. They don't know what the values are. Here's the other thing. They also don't know what's going on in a particular market, in a particular house at any given time. Okay. So yeah, of course they have more general knowledge about the real estate market than say, your average citizen sitting on the couch scrolling through Zillow. And that's because they work with agents. They talk to agents. They know what things are going for. They know how quickly things are going for. But what they don't know is the house that we're in, were there multiple offers in that place? Is the house that they were in, what is the demand in that neighborhood? Okay. How much did that person want that neighborhood? How much does that buyer really understand anything about homes? Okay. I've had inspectors talk about an ungrounded outlet in a living room as if it were the worst fire hazard that you could come across. And the house, it was imminent that was going to burn down. And you're talking about a house that's 70, 80 years old and still standing, never had one of these problems. But the way that they communicate an ungrounded outlet to this first-time home buyer is horrifying. And that first time home buyer is scared as hell over something that's not really that big of a deal normally, right? So they should never talk about negotiations. They should never recommend negotiation tactics, and especially never recommend numbers. They don't know. As the agent, that's your job. Okay. Now, what if you're an agent and you have an inspector that you've never met before? Because look, guys, when inspectors were required to get licenses, which in my opinion is laughable, just like real estate agents having licenses is somewhat laughable. That's a whole different argument, discussion. But I'll just say this. Real estate agents need to get licensed to operate, but that doesn't keep crappy real estate agents from working out there in the field. Same goes for inspectors, right? So if you're an agent and you've got a new inspector whom you've never met, what should you do to make sure that you, your client, the deal is protected, that this inspector is doing the right thing? Well, number one, observe them, watch them. Shame on you if you're one of the agents that show up, open the door for the inspector, go sit in your car, smoke a cigarette, sit on the phone all day long. What are you doing? If you don't know this inspector, you should not be all loosey-goosey with it, right? You should be watching the inspector, watching how they operate. Do they look like they're moving from spot to spot with knowledge, with a system? You should be taking some time to walk through the house yourself and trying to observe any sort of defects that you can. And then maybe at the end of the inspection, ask that inspector if they saw some of the things that you saw, right? Just checking them a little bit, okay? Making sure that they're looking. You should definitely be looking to control the flow of the work. And what I'm saying there is there are some pretty chatty inspectors out there, okay? I can tell you, when I meet an inspector for the first time, if the first thing they do is start rattling off their resume about the different construction companies they work for, or the different whatever, if they start rattling off their resume of their construction background, it's a giant red flag, because I already know that this inspector, it's of top priority to them that everyone understands that they know more than everybody else. That's a problem, okay? Nobody cares, number one. And number two, if they can prove right off the rip that their top priority is that everyone knows that they know so much, that's just it. It's their top priority. They're going to make sure in everything they communicate that they're expressing that their knowledge base is greater than everyone else around them. That's a problem. Those are the kind of inspectors who scare people. Here's the other thing. If they're real chatty, for your typical house, which we look at every single week here on Real Estate Bites, typical house, 3-bed, 1.5 bath, about 1,700 square feet. Okay. Split level, maybe a ranch, not a very big house. That should take 2.5 hours, right? If you're 4.5 hours deep into this inspection, what's this guy doing? Or gal, for that matter? What are they doing? I can tell you what, I feel like they're wasting my time. I got other things to do. Maybe that inspector don't have anything else to get to, but I know I do. So if they're spending way too much time shooting the breeze, I'm going to go tell them to get back to work. And I have no problem doing that. And as an agent, you should respect yourself and your time a little bit more than just to let them prattle on. Tell them to get back to work. Okay. Now, here's the thing for inspectors. If you have an agent that is asking you to cover things up, hide things, fail to report things because they're worried that it might affect their deal, I'm asking you, Mr. Inspector, to report that agent. Okay. Real estate sales is a self-policing industry. And the only way we get rid of the scumbags in the industry is by telling the estate who licenses them that person is a scumbag. So Mr. or Mrs. Inspector, if you have an agent who is asking you to cover up things that you find, or fail to report things that you find, or downplay the severity of things that you find, I'm asking you to report that agent, because that agent is way more concerned about their commission than they are their buyer, and they are breaking all their fiduciary duties, asking you to do so. It is a huge violation of license law and agency, and it needs to be reported. All right. That's what I got about home inspectors this week, guys. Let's move into this week's statistics. Okay, so we had, there we go, 443 single-family homes and condos were on the market this morning. All right, that's a 41 unit increase from last week. So selling season is underway, guys. We're in the thick of it here. The middle of spring, head into summertime. This is obviously the best time to sell a home. In my opinion, this is the best time in Northeast Ohio to sell a home. People are looking, they're planning about, their move in between the school years, whether they're moving within the same district or without, doesn't matter. They do not want to disrupt their kids' school year. They want to move in the summer. Additionally, boy, everything looks a whole lot prettier right now in mid-May or late May than it did in early April, doesn't it? Everything's green, flowers are blooming, things are beautiful, the butterflies are flitting around, the birds are happy. It just, everything looks better and everything's still green. The summer hasn't come and dried everything up. The grass is still beautiful green and not brown. There's no better time to sell a house than May and June in Northeast Ohio. Okay. 443 single-family homes and condos available on the market in Lorain County as of this morning. Last week, there were 66 closings. The median square foot of the houses sold last week was 1,701 square feet. Median home value, $279,950. The median square foot value, $171.25. You can see it, guys. Listen, I just had a conversation yesterday with a lady who lives in my community whose daughter is working with another agent. Shame. And they're concerned. The woman who I spoke to was concerned that their daughter wasn't getting good representation because the agent that their daughter was working with was, in a sense, encouraging them to write an offer on a home that needed some serious upgrades. It had older windows and stuff like that. And I had to explain, listen, that's the market today. It's tight inventory. It's a seller's market, and honestly, those homes that are outdated are the only place where you're going to find value, because in a house that's all done up, you're competing against 4, 5, 6 other people. If it's the right neighborhood, you might be competing against, 10. If it's underpriced, 20. Okay. So, and the whole point of this in regards to this square foot value is, she asked, what should she do, Jonathan? I mean, should she just sign on and rent for another year and wait for home prices to? And I said, no, I don't see any relief for home buyers in the near future. I'll say it again. I did a whole entire episode on this just last week. Interest rates coming down is not the answer for home buyers. Interest rates coming down is a problem for home buyers because it becomes more competitive and house prices increase again drastically. And I doubt home buyers' wages are following that sort of appreciation / inflation as quickly, right? Interest rates coming down is going to make it harder on home buyers. What you do, you hope that you buy the home now and interest rates do come down so that you can refinance. But without any movement in interest rates, home prices keep going up. We're tracking it right here in column G. Okay. We're tracking it right there in column G. We can see the averages creeping up and up. I mean, here, we started at 144, 156, 162 or 160 to 159. We had it just a little bit stale over the winter time of 24 going into 25, but then it picked right back up. 165 was the last one we saw. I bet it's going to be 167 the next time we come around to it. I mean, we got 157 down here, kind of an outlier, but look how many of these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 7 weeks have been above 170 since Q1 2025 ended. Okay. We've only had one below 160 and one here just a touch under Q4 24's average median square foot value. So it looks like in real time, we are still seeing appreciation. And after selling season ends, I mean, that's where we're going to see the most. Because again, homes look beautiful this time of year. People are competing for them. People have been spending time and money getting their house ready specifically for this time of year. I imagine we're going to see more of these square foot values at or around the 170 mark through the rest of spring and summertime. Okay. Average days on market, 16. All right. That, again, is the indicator of what a strong seller's market we have. Houses are flying off the market. 16 days on the market is nothing, considering the fact that you got to go through all contingencies to come off the market. Okay. This morning, we had a little bit of relief, 10 basis points in the interest rate for a 30-year conventional mortgage. It was down to 6.97 from 7.07% last week. And then the big sale of last week was in Avon, $689,000. We'll go ahead and take a look at this place. Maybe. It's giving me a hard time here with the pictures. All right, let's try this. Here we go. All right, so this place here, North Fall Lake Drive in Avon. Nice, beautiful colonial. Just want to see some of the architectural features they got here. An in-ground pool. A lot of people love that. In-ground pools, they add no value to your home. Sorry, folks. I know people who have them think that it should add, 20% to the value of the home. But the reason why it adds no value to your home is because for every one person who would love to have that pool in the backyard, there's another person who that becomes a major deterrent to buy the home. Whether it's they don't want to deal with the upkeep and maintenance of the pool, or they got small children and are worried about horrific accidents, whatever it might be. But that in-ground pool, as beautiful and as fun as it might be, it doesn't add value to the home, okay? Moving on here. What does add value to the home is this absolutely beautiful and amazing hard-covered attached porch here. I love these sorts of patios that are covered like this with your electrical run out there. I mean, just absolutely beautiful place to hang and recreate and relax in the summertime here. That adds a ton of value. All right, so we get inside the house here. Staging. Think about this to agents and sellers alike. Imagine how much bigger this space looks without this rug, where you get just enough, just a little bit more flooring in here, and it makes that run to the door seem a little bit larger. And it doesn't break up the pattern of the flooring, which also takes away from the appearance of being a little more grand. All right. The dining room. Okay. I love these built-in bookshelves here. The glass is kind of a thing. I don't know. I wouldn't trust myself with glass shelves. Nice big kitchen. You got your island overlooking the living room. Beautiful fireplace in the back. Nice open concept out here in the main living area. Your slider right onto that back patio and your pool. Beautiful home, of course. Would expect nothing less for just shy of $700,000. Big, beautiful master. I love that the master's got its own little reading nook in here, or a little entertainment room, and you got enough room off the master for a sectional and a television, entertainment center. Big, beautiful walk-in shower. Fantastic. That's our big one of the week. All right, guys. Thank you guys for joining me. This one went a little bit long. I was rambling today. My My apologies. Look, sometimes I don't get to, I don't pick what I'm going to talk about until the morning of. Sometimes I've got a plan for weeks. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm going to talk about until I'm under the gun the morning of the show, and I got to figure something out. And then I start preparing. Well, that was today, but even the preparation for this was disrupted quite a bit because it's busy, guys. It is the selling season. Right sales team is rocking, and things are awesome. So at any rate, as always, take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. I love you, people. I'll see you next week.